From the CISO Series, it's cybersecurity headlines.
IRS Identity Protection Pin now available for filing season. UK mulling public sector ransomware payment ban, and new ransomware group leverages AI. These are some of the stories that my colleagues and I have selected from this past week's cybersecurity headlines. And now we're eager for some insight, opinion, and expertise from our returning guest making his third appearance, Phil Beyer, head of security over at Flex. Phil, you joined us back in May. It's been a little while, so I got to ask you, how was your week in cybersecurity?
Loving this new year, getting excited for all the crazy stuff we're going to see. I've already seen a few things that are keeping us on our toes.
Well, one thing to keep on your toes is the 3 stars that we just awarded you in the video chat. Our producer, Steve, putting up the 3-star salute for our 3-time guest. Phil, thrilled to have you here. Also thrilled to have another sponsor back, Drop Zone AI. Tired of alert overload? Drop Zone AI. Join us on YouTube Live. Do so. Go to CISOSeries.com, hit the events drop down, and look for the cybersecurity headlines week in review image. Just click on it to join us. And be sure to contribute your comments in our chat. Oh my gosh, we're already getting some craziness going on here. But of course, we got the big boss man, David Spark, in there. But we got Michael Vending, we got CCL, we got Tom Kent in there, who appreciates my cat shirt that I am wearing. If you're not watching the video feed, also, you are missing out. CISO Series on YouTube for all of that good stuff. Get in there and join the chat. Let us know what you think of these stories as we are going along with these. We're going to be sharing all of our opinions. And just a quick reminder that the opinions that Phil is about to share are not necessarily those of his employer, but we appreciate them nonetheless. Now, the Supreme Court just upheld the TikTok ban today, which is still set to go into effect now on January 19th. But we've got plenty of other news to dig into, to discuss, to dissect, and to get the details of. We got about 20 minutes, though, so let's get going. First up here, the IRS Identity Protection Pin is now available for filing season. The IRS has relaunched its Identity Protection Personal Identification Number IP Pin program. It's a mouthful. The IP Pin is a 6-digit number assigned to an individual taxpayer and must be used when filing a tax return. The number is only valid for the current year. A new one will be assigned each tax year. The goal is to prevent scammers from filing a tax return using a stolen social security number and personal information. As Believe Computer points out, this program even more critical this year with over 100 million people's social security numbers exposed in the massive national public data breach. Of course, given the number of data breaches with social security numbers out there, it's potato here. But Phil, given the enormous amount of personal data that's just been floating around for years, appears to be a good idea. However, given how many people every year are duped by scammers through phishing and smishing, do you worry that opportunistic criminals will immediately step in as, for an example, I don't know, an authorized assistant when you're filing with your IP pin here? Like, is this just a new target, or does this help make things better?
Oh, I'm sure that it's making things better. I know we've seen some efforts to take advantage of this in the past. It's just relatively new, right? So we'll see if this year is bringing more exciting and creative attacks. Ultimately, the IRS is in a tough spot. You have to serve a lot of different, massive constituency, all sorts of different people who still don't want to pay their taxes and have to pay them again, yada yada. So it's not like we love this process, but they're trying to do their best to give us a little bit of options that work for everybody. So as always, they're trying to do their best, and I think that it's still better than the alternative, which is not having this at all, like we've had in previous years. So I'm not sure that it's any worse, as much as just we should again continue to try to help and support all this, communicate out how important these kinds of PIN things are to maintain security for our own submissions, and try to get the word out for folks.
Michael Vending in the chat here says, am I the crazy person in the corner thinking we need a strong cryptographically secure national ID to remove/reduce all these identity-based attack vectors? And that kind of got me thinking, I'm thinking along the same lines here, Michael, because this almost seems like grafting on like two-factor social security numbers, basically, right? That it's like a one-time
Yeah,
expiring
yeah, it is. No,
single-purpose
you're right. It
ID number.
absolutely is, and we in this community knows for sure that those kinds of protections are massively flawed in terms of how you can take advantage of them, and yet it's not like everybody's using multi-factor for everything already anyway. So this is better than nothing across the board. I mean, Michael's point is a good one though. If they were different, like the IRS should at least be considering here different stages, right? For everybody making this pin available, and maybe for those of us who are slightly on the more sophisticated part of the spectrum, maybe something a little bit stronger.
All right, next up here, UK mulling public sector ransomware payment ban. This is part of a Home Office consultation, essentially a survey, launched January 14th and running until April 8th. The proposed ban is intended to protect hospitals, schools, railways, and other essential public services from the growing ransomware threat by making these critical services unattractive targets for ransomware. The proposal would also offer guidance to ransomware victims on how to respond and would also help block payments to known criminal groups and sanctioned entities. So, Phil, this seems like one of those well-intentioned ideas whose leverage is based on dissuading ransomware actors from attacking hospitals before they decide to do it. Kind of take
Yeah.
away, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. The general public tends not to think like that and will likely be thinking only about whether they can get immediate help when they need to get to their hospital. Like that's what they're there for. That's what their focus is on there. I'm curious, what are your thoughts about these kind of proposed bans?
Yeah, and the third group, right, the people who are actually responsible for these institutions, the healthcare professionals, the teachers and education folks and what have you, those folks also want to just do their job, right? They just want to just
Yeah.
deliver the service that they're trying to do. Um, the it strikes me as I don't know how you like block payments to unsanctioned crypto wallets though. Like, I mean, I get it, sure. Let's block the payment to the organized crime bank account that we knew about, but we weren't able to. I mean, I'm not really sure how that works there, right? Because we're not paying crypto ransoms to governments that are sanctioned. Even though I realize that paths are used that way, but the point is that cryptocurrency is vast majority of ransomware style payments, and we can't really block those now when we know things are happening now. So I'm not understanding exactly how they're going to expect to connect that. Now, typically, these kinds of things, which we've seen also either floated as possibilities or actually trying to institute in other areas of the world, it really just comes back to bite the people that are trying to do the right thing, which is what you alluded to already. Like folks who on the government side want to try to do the right thing by putting a block in place. Folks in delivering the services want to try to do the right thing by we can't figure anything else out, so let's pay the ransom and get services restored. So those are the folks that are going to suffer, right? The people that are making the decision to make the payment. I am 100% in favor of trying to eliminate the incentive for ransomware, but we haven't been able to do it in a variety of other fashions, not the electronic variety, but ransom for other activities across the world has been going on for centuries, millennia, I don't know, for a long time, right? And we still can't stop that. So I'm not sure that this is going to really be an effective use of people's time.
Yeah, and as CCL points out, good luck stopping nation states with a payment ban.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's so we will see if that makes any headway in the UK. So keep an eye on cybersecurity headlines for updates on that. Next up here, hey, speaking of ransomware, I think we've talked about that once or twice on this show. New ransomware group leverages AI. Emerging ransomware group FunkSec has claimed responsibility for over 80 attacks in December 2024. Yes, that's what they've claimed, 80 in a month, using a Rust-based ransomware likely created with AI by inexperienced threat actors. As a ransomware as a service model, the group engages in double extortion and sells stolen data at discounted prices, a well-worn model for threat actor revenue. It's also launched a data leak site featuring custom tools, including a DDoS utility and an AI chatbot. So, Phil, this group is just one of many that exists or will exist soon, leveraging the ease and power of AI to create tools of their trade. I'm curious, what should CISOs be doing to prepare for this seemingly unprecedented advance in technology available to threat actors?
Yeah, I don't. It's more probably a democratization of this. The folks
Right.
who've been wanting to do this for a while now have more tools available to write cool software. I mean, if you all haven't, sidebar, but very related, if you haven't started to play with AI to write software on your own, you really should. It's a really nifty way of trying to visualize something or create a proof of concept for yourself before taking it to a team or going into the design phase for professionals as opposed to people like me who try to play one on TV. Um, the In this case, though, I think this is just the bad actors doing the exact same thing, right? So they've just lowered the bar to actually creating the ransomware, the activities. And while they do have a cool name, and probably maybe even cooler than the typhoons or pandas of the world, um, I do think that we're just going to see more and more and more of this, and that's not rocket science. We've been seeing this kind of progression already, and this now is just an indicator of their product or their service or whatever they're preparing is going to get better and better, and they're enabled or made faster with AI, just like the rest of us.
Phil, is this like the idea with AI tools for threat actors and for on the defense is, this can be a force multiplier. This can increase efficiency of, this can allow us to upskill a lot of people, right? Like in terms of on both sides, right? Like I'm an okay coder, but with Copilot or a similar tool like that,
Yeah.
I'm able to create more productive code, more meaningful code, and stuff like that. I'm curious though, for specifically on what threat actors getting this capability. Is that why we're seeing the conversation around resilience becoming like such a drumbeat in cybersecurity, in terms of like, if we can focus on that, it matters less that those capabilities are scaling on the attacker side if we can really just focus on resilience. I'm curious.
So I would say it like this: the we've always known that at some point the time between vulnerability slash exploit and actual exploitation, right? So the time between 0 day or announcement or discovery and exploitation and in the wild and activity, and then again the kind of like lower bar, a script kiddie version of exploit. That time is always decreasing. It always has been since the original kind of exploits were ever discovered and in the wild. And that cycle or that life cycle of the development of discovery and development to exploit is going to continue to decrease. So whether we call it resilience or defense in depth, as the series implies, or and then or zero trust or whatever strategy we're using,
Mhm.
the strategy has to assume that there will always be attackers who are trying to innovate faster than our defenses. And it doesn't matter how we pursue that objective, but the objective remains the same, which is we have to be able to defend against something that we don't know is out there as soon as we have a sense that this vector is available, or this attack surface becomes is made available to the outside, or what have you, right? We have to be able to react and respond faster and faster, and that's just a reality of this profession.
All right. Well, before we move on to our next story, we have to spend a few moments and thank our sponsor for today, DropZone AI. What if your SOC could handle 10 times the alerts without burning out your team? DropZone AI automates tier 1 investigations and frees your analysts to tackle bigger challenges. It's how smart teams are staying ahead. See how it works. Schedule a demo today at dropzone.ai. That's DROPZONE.ai. AllState accused of selling consumer driving data. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has filed a lawsuit against AllState and its subsidiary Arity, accusing them of illegally collecting, using, and selling cell phone location and movement data from over 45 million Americans without their knowledge. Harvested through embedded software and mobile apps, the data was used to create a massive driving behavior database that ensures access to adjust premiums and price quotes. The collection of the data violates Texas's new Data Privacy and Security Act, and this legal action marks the first state-level enforcement of a comprehensive data privacy law, with automakers and popular mobile apps also implicated in the alleged scheme. So, Phil, other states have already enacted privacy laws in areas such as healthcare or talking about biometrics, like in Illinois. But as we start to see litigation happening, how do you see this aligning with the fact that no state is an island and people and data travel pretty freely, particularly within the US, but pretty much everywhere? Is the balkanization of data security even feasible? And might it simply motivate companies like Allstate to, hey, we need to hike these rates to cover the inevitable litigation?
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting angle. I don't know that that's really what I'm concerned about. I'm certainly poo-poo on Allstate here because this is why we have privacy policies, right?
Yeah.
It's not because they can't collect this data to then provide better insurance premiums to people. That's a wonderful idea, and certainly other auto insurance companies have either been doing that or intend to do that more in the future. The problem is when we don't know about it, right? Is when there's a
Mhm.
disconnect between the consumer and the practice of the company, and exposing those activities and ensuring that there's clarity between the consumer and the company is the important part. I think what's whether this is kind of a problem of disparate security and privacy laws between states and things. I'm certainly a proponent of more unified coverage in that regard, or clarity again for the rest of us enacting or in charge of being responsible for complying with regulations is a freaking nightmare. All of the patchwork of things we have today. Um, but ultimately the goal we're trying to achieve is the same, which is protection for the data, um, um, and privacy for our constituents or consumers. So I'm more excited here that someone's going after a company that really is doing it the wrong way, even if it did have the right intentions. Um, uh, so I think this is a good thing, but I'm not exactly sure what it marks on our progress towards, like, are we making, does this mean we're making more progress? I don't know. Does this mean that we have sufficient security and privacy laws in place around the country? No, that definitely doesn't seem to be the case. So I'm still kind of unsure what milestone this marks.
The FCC just made in the last couple of years, made a big deal with all of their like broadband, like nutrition label kind of things. And
Right.
this is where I feel like we're lacking that when it comes to privacy policies, where it's like you're absolutely right. Like I wouldn't be surprised, right? If this happens, like they sell you a product that you can plug into your car. At least they used to. I'm sure there's a phone. They use the phone apps for this
Right.
now, but that you plug into your car and get a real time quote. So if you had a risky driving, behavior, but you were driving safe now, maybe you could get like more of a real time quote or something like that. Like that was a very explicit thing. We're going to track your driving and
Yeah, the
give you a rate.
opt-in concept.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
No one had a problem with that. You could choose to not do that and just go off the historical data. But yeah, the show it to me up front. Don't let me get to the outrage stage, because this had to have not passed the smell test
Yeah.
on this for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, next up here, speaking of staying on the road here, Illinois to get mobile driver's license in Apple Wallet by the end of 2025. Illinois plans to launch digital IDs in Apple Wallet by year's end, allowing residents to add driver's licenses and state IDs to iPhones and Apple Watches, and then Google Wallet support is to follow, as is the way. Illinois joins 10 other states and territories offering IDs in Apple Wallet. New Jersey is also pushing for mobile driver's license, citing convenience with real-time address updates. Misconceptions persist, but officials stress that these don't enable government tracking. So, Phil, I have a simple question. How comfortable do you think the average citizen will be just handing over their phone, to a police officer for a routine traffic stop?
I hadn't thought about that angle. Even was that even in our show notes? I don't remember. The I'm an early adopter. I'm bullish on these kinds of things. I wouldn't mind handing things over. I do think it's a good question to ask, though. Like,
Mhm.
is this something that people worry about? I'm sure that there will be lawyers on the case, so to speak, in ensuring that no, you can't just put this nifty new breathalyzer thing just right out in front of of somebody without some sort of reasonable assurance, because I mean, technology is always increasing, so we're always improving. Why wouldn't you be able to put some detector in the front coat button of an officer, and that's able to detect whether Phil is driving impaired or something? Um, In this case, though, I think the benefits of digital IDs vastly outweigh the concerns. I've always been generally in that camp here. I don't know that I agree with the national ID concept that Michael and others that Michael was talking about earlier, and that others have proposed for quite some time. We'll see, but we have state IDs now, and it works just fine. We just need to get them digitized and make them more available. I don't know that that's necessarily really a privacy or tracking concern, as much as the concern instead that you put out, that Rich, that people might really want to not be handing over a phone on a regular basis, because you would have to, I guess theoretically, you may or may not have to unlock it to show the ID. And if you have unlocked it and handed it over, wait a minute, hold on, what's going on here?
Like, there's a whole lot of civil rights implications.
Yeah, it's a good use case or a good scenario to be thinking through. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Well, and Michael Vending in the chat points out, they have these in California, but getting on a flight, you still have to carry a physical ID. He was trying to go to CES. No luck, Michael. I hope you had a good CES, by the way. It looked like a fun show. All right, moving on to our last story of the day. A law firm disclosed a data breach from 2023. The firm Wolf, Halderstein, Adler, Freeman and Hers disclosed it suffered a data breach on December 13th, 2023, impacting the personal information of roughly 3.4 million people. This included names, social security numbers, medical diagnoses, and claim information. Even though the incident was detected over a year ago, the firm said digital forensic complications delayed its investigation. While it has published a general breach notice on its website and informed Maine's Attorney General of the incident, it hasn't been able to send notices to many impacted individuals due to a lack of contact information. So this is where I feel like I have to look over the bridge of my metaphorical glasses in somewhat of a school marmy style. Does that pass the smell test here? The forensic complications leading to a year-long delay in disclosure here. Like I'm sure there are reasons that this could be very complicated, but shouldn't that be part of like your incident response strategy, like knowing that you're going to have to contact people in the event of a breach, right, Phil?
Right. I don't know. This feels a little bit like classic lawyer. I hopefully some of my lawyer friends are listening, because they will appreciate that I when I ask them questions, I never get an answer. I try to be responsive. I'm also a security person, so I don't always give thorough responses all the time. I'm swamped, just like many of you, I'm sure, are with your day to day. But I try. I'm not sure my lawyer colleagues in the past or the present even really try. So this almost, I'm just chuckling because this almost feels like just what lawyers do, right? Lawyers just kind of put off as long as possible the thing. And this next part here isn't funny. Shame on them, because that's not how we do things, right? I totally get that you want to be accurate and forthright and clear and deliver updates that are that don't unnecessarily alert or endanger or whatever. Like I understand, but a year, come on, that is, even for me, who I'm almost always, my first reaction is empathy for the responders. Always. I've done that on this show before. I've done it in private and in public communities, to say that, hey, our first reaction should be, how can we help? Our first reaction should be, fellow security professional, fellow person who is undergoing trial and tribulation and stress right now. Is there anything I can do to help? Be healthy for you as a person. All those things. That's the most important part of this. But a year later is way too much. I'm not really sure that there's anything I can think of. I'm not that creative of a person, so perhaps there are legitimate scenarios and reasons why you would wait a year or more, really, to disclose what's going on. But I would think that's really negligence on this person, on this firm's part.
The scariest part about this, though, was they did the typical move of, we're going to offer credit monitoring services. but instead, because they don't know yet who to alert, they said in the press release, they said that like anyone that believes that they were impacted can approach. And I was like, that's the most intimidating. You have to approach a law firm with evidence that you think that you deserve this service from.
And it's distinctly possible that the reason why they waited a year is because they knew they were going to have to say that. And they're like, man, that sounds really bad. Can we get any better data here? And as anybody who's done forensics or response knows, if the right circumstances or the right environment wasn't positioned, then no, you really can't say for sure what happened. So they may find themselves in a position where, hey, we kind of have to say everybody can get protected, and we just don't want to have to say that. Well, I mean, sorry, folks, but that's how this game works. I don't like it either, but it's what you got to do.
Well, as Tomcat says in the chat here, cyber lawyers are great at giving answers. And I just got to give a big shout out to the chat, because there was a fantastic conversation. Unfortunately, we had to move on from the story, but involving the ransomware. I know this is something CCL in our chat is passionate about. This topic has come up about, not paying the Ransomware Act, or stop giving them the incentive or trying to cut off that incentive to be able to go after organizations. And a really interesting conversation in our chat, kind of from everybody over there, about some of the difficulties in that, some of the nuances in there. Just a really intelligent, fun conversation. That's what you can get if you join us live each and every Friday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. So good stuff. Thank you, chat, for that. Much appreciated for that. Before we get out of here, for you though, Phil, was there any story this week in the rundown, or just the news of the week, that was a thumbs up or an eye roller for you?
I'm going to go thumbs down to the UK ban. Again, mostly because of the chat here. I think I agree with you, Rich, very creative and very informed here about some options, right, in terms of insurance, cyber insurance coverage, and not paying a claim and all these kinds of things. But ultimately, we do need to figure out a way to de-incentivize ransomware. I'm 100% in favor of that. And I just don't think the UK ban is the way to do it. I don't think that that's going to really address the need or the idea. So whether that's eye roller or thumbs down or deprioritize or whatever, no, that's not the way to do it.
Well, thank you so much, Phil Beyer, head of security over at Flex. I love it every time you're on. Always a great time. We will have to have you on again before too long, because this was just too much fun. Where can people find you online if they are so inclined to follow you on the cyberspace?
LinkedIn is great. I promise I'm not ghosting people who reach out to me. I really do intend to reach out to you. I have the best of intentions, and life happens. But still, LinkedIn continues to be the place to try to reach out. Try.
Thanks also to our sponsor for today, DropZone AI. Tired of alert overload? DropZone AI. Also, thanks to our audience today. We can't always get to every single comment up on the screen. Like that whole conversation, it was just kind of flowing too fast to highlight each one, and we had kind of moved on. But I love seeing it. Helps inform us what you're interested in. Like that's what we want to bring to you, is the stories that you're interested in, so we know those things resonate with you. That means a lot to us. Thank you, each and every one of you, for participating. A reminder, you can join us next Friday, January 24th, for Super Cyber Friday. It's back in 2025. Our topic is going to be hacking platformization, an hour of critical thinking of how stitching together data, tools, and processes is necessary for the success of your cyber or security program. Then come back for another episode of the Week in Review. That starts at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. You can register for both and get in on all the fun chat for both of those shows. Just go to the events page at CISOSeries.com. And if you still haven't checked it out, the regular show, you should definitely check out Cybersecurity Headlines every single day. Give us about 6 minutes. We'll get you all caught up, regardless of how fast you listen. If you're a 0.5 listener, if you're a 3x listener, anywhere in between, you can get your daily news fix. Until the next time we meet, for myself, for Phil, for our producer, Steve Prentice, who always does an amazing job, for all of us here on the CISO Series team, here's wishing you and yours to have a super sparkly day.
Cybersecurity headlines are available every weekday. Head to CISOSeries.com for the full stories behind the headlines.